Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For you reap whatever you sow. If you sow to your own flesh, you will reap corruption from the flesh. But if you sow to the Spirit, you will reap eternal life from the Spirit. So let us not grow weary in doing what is right, for we will reap at harvest time if we do not give up. So then, whenever we have an opportunity, let us work for the good of all, and especially for those of the family of faith. Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 through 10. So I have this Ninja blender top that does not work. Put it on the container that it is supposed to sit on, and it actuates this little white switch here, and you hit this silver button and nothing happens. So I'm going to attempt to take this apart and see if I can clean up the switch or figure out what's causing it not to turn on. So there are these two holes, one here and one there, and they have those two Phillips head screws in there, and I removed those. And this top just comes off like so. And it appears that that green piece there goes down in that hole and engages that switch there. So with this cover off and it plugged in, I'm able to get it to jump by just actuating that switch. But it doesn't work with this when I push on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to remove these three screws here and see if that gives me some access to this switch. Okay, so I removed those three screws and just pulled that out, and then there's a little screw that holds that on. Actually, it had this little washer in there like that, and then the screw just held that cord. So I noticed that there's kind of some crud around in here and also down in there. So I'm going to clean that out, and that might make a little less load on the motor, for one. And the other thing that I noticed is that this switch floats up and down in there. So, and this is the piece that sticks out through this little hole right there. Also, I'm going to try to take this little plastic piece off of the switch and see if that switch comes apart, so I can clean up the contacts on that switch. That might help some too. I don't know where that comes apart, but we'll see. So if you look at this switch body there, you can see there's been a lot of sparking going on there. I don't know, that may be normal, but a lot of buildup there. And then if you look at the bottom of this switch, you can see the contacts. So I might just try to spray a little contact cleaner in there, and then put a little dielectric grease back on there and see if that doesn't work a little better. So I can demonstrate how this works. This is the top for the pitcher, and when you put this piece down on here, see how it raises that white piece up? So that raises that white piece up when I stick that on there, and that moves that, sits like this, so it moves it up closer to that plunger, and that's what allows it to turn on. But if I look at these contacts here, when I push this up like this, it makes contact with that and that. But there's a fair amount of black stuff on there, so I'm just going to use this contact cleaner and spray that out, get that all cleaned up. And actually, as I did that, see, you got a little piece of that contact that came off. So that's probably the problem. This little switch is wearing out. Maybe initially there was no hole in it. On both sides it looks like there's a hole. And so those contacts are just worn out. That's probably the issue with this. Okay, so I'm trying to rebuild these contacts of this switch. And the switch works by moving this plunger down here up like that. And that causes the piece to come up like that, and it completes the circuit between these two right here. And so the problem is that those contacts have worn away on both sides. And so what I am going to attempt to do is I've taken a little piece of this Romex house wire cable, and I just took the bare section of the copper and cut a little piece off. And then this is after I've worked with it, I put it on my vise like so, and I just hit it with a hammer until it flattened it out. And so my idea is I'm going to take and cut that piece in half, and it looks like it's just close to the right size to then be able to solder onto the contact on either side. And I'm thinking about just setting it on the top, just like that. And I'll just let it stick out enough so that when that plunger comes up, it'll make contact. So I took my wire cutters and cut that piece in half, and now I'm gonna place it up on the switch and solder it. In order to make the contact more effective, I put a little bend in it so that it would be more likely to come into contact with the plunger. I'm going to attempt to solder this now. And now the other side. Okay, and just testing out my switch. Seems to work. Okay, and this piece goes down through that little hole, slides in there and slides in here, and then this switch fits in there. I think maybe like this. Let me put this on first. And I'll slide this back in like that. And this piece goes in like that. And can't forget the spring here. And before I get too excited, I notice that I got to put this cord back in the right place. Okay, that's back in there now. Screw this down. top piece. That's down like that. And install the 2 screws here. Okay, that plunger still works. That sits on there. Okay, so now just press on it. And it works again. So, very nice. Thanks for watching.